Georgia Virtue presents the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. Howdy. Thank you for downloading episode 331. This week, we have Kemp bashing, Walz waltzing around his history, the Debbie and beyond, think before you post, defeminization, which is not easy to say.
No, it's not.
The Shrinking Squad, Biker Down, and Flying in Brazil. I'm Dave Roberts. With me is my partner in this endeavor, Commissioner-elect Ken Pullen.
Yes. How are you this week, Dave? Did you see? By the way, did you see the national debt hit $35 trillion this week?
Is that all?
Yeah, that's all.
Will they take a post-dated check for I don't know, year 2500?
The most, look, I think we all know the national debt's out of control, but what I thought was interesting is the deficit hit $1.5 trillion through July, which is 25% of federal spending. So we're spending 25% more right now than we take in. And I don't know about you, but I haven't heard a political presidential candidate talk about the national debt in the last, I know in 2024. I mean, there's nobody addressing the national debt.
That's because you have two people who were previously in office. You have Harris, who is currently the VP, and you have Trump, who expanded the debt.
Yeah, who blew it out. Yeah,
which presidential candidate is going to talk about it? The only one who can would be Kennedy, and no one's listening to him.
And can you imagine, how do we cut, like somebody said, we've got to, like, for a balanced budget to occur, you would have to cut $1.5 trillion out of federal spending. There's a way for that to happen, but there's not one soul in Washington, D.C. that has the gonads to make that happen.
Give me the budget and a red pen.
Yeah, but there's, what is it?
Yeah,
80 to 85% now is...
funding lesbian studies in Pakistan, gone.
Yeah, I think you could get rid of all that, but I don't think it does it touches a deficit at all. I mean, you're going to have to hit Social Security, you're going to have to hit Medicaid and Medicare, and you're going to have to hit the military. I mean, you've got to hit those three areas.
The Army changes uniforms every few years. We could cut that out, and it's not a huge line item, but it's indicative of the waste that we find in the industry. I mean, why do we have a space force? I mean, it's absurd. I know that's a Trump thing, and I'm sure MAGA people.
Why does every government agency have a police force with it? I mean, why not? Why can't we just have the FBI if we must have it? Why does the Department of Agriculture have armed people working for the Department of Ag? Right? Why do any of these? Yeah, I just don't get it.
It's being usurped. You've got Tulsi Gabbard, who ended up on the Quiet Skies list for being an extremist. She was a Democratic congresswoman.
I know.
Or I don't know if she's still serving, but she was a light bird colonel in the Army Reserve. I think she was in civil affairs, which is the redheaded stepchild of special operations. But the reason I say that is with her rank and what she did for a living, or did within the Army Reserve, she would have a top secret security clearance. Yep. Being a member of Congress, Congress,
or that,
she would have a TS clearance. For her to end up like that is weaponization of the Justice Department.
Yep,
it's absolutely weaponization. But that's where our money's going, is to surveil our own people. Not a dime is going to secure the damn border. They want to spend more money on more people to process the illegals, not to keep them out.
I totally agree with you on that. But until we touch the entitlement programs, we're not going to put there's not going to be a dent in this deficit. At some point, these entitlement programs are going to have to be seriously cut down, and that's going to cause. And if you don't, you know how it is. Like, if you do it over time, it's less of a hit than if you do it all at once. And there's going to come a day in our lifetime that it's going to have to be done all at once, and it's going to be really, really bad.
Why is it that every employer I know, including government now, because the military has gone to this, uses 401ks instead of pensions? Because pensions are non-sustainable.
Yeah,
They just aren't. And the same thing goes for Social Security. Now, there needs to be a dividing line, whether it's 50, 40, wherever it is, and say, and then anybody under that's paid in, give them a refund. And say,
I agree.
Go invest it yourself.
I mean, at this point,
because
they gave me $50,000, I would just take the check and run with it. I mean,
yeah, well, think about it. As crappy as the market is, or was this last week.
Yeah, just the last week, though. I mean, it's done extremely well.
It ended up being flat, more or less. But if you look at the Dow, when did you start working? I started working in early 90s.
1998 is when I started working.
I started working.
There's only been a couple bad stretches with the
right. But if
2000 was a bad stretch, 2007, and then we had.
Yeah, but when I got my first real job, and now I'd worked off the books for cash for years before that. But when I got my first job bagging groceries, that's when I started paying into Social Security. So that was damn near 30 years ago. Oh, it's more than 30 years ago. As a matter of fact, I mean, it was 32 years ago.
Yeah, but you're right. The market kind of tanked this week, but it did come back a little.
Yeah, but if you were to look at the Dow in 1992, when I started buying in, and versus now, had that money gone into a 401k instead of going to Social Security, how much money would I have? Yeah. Would I be sitting on right now? Because the Dow back then, the talk back then was, will the Dow ever hit 10,000? And now it's around 40. That's 4 times that.
Yeah, you'd have a lot more money.
that I would have made from 1992 when I first started paying into Social Security.
Yeah.
Till today is 4 times. Now, if I were to cash out Social Security at what is it, 62? Then I'm getting $1,000 a month. No, it's ridiculous. And every time you talk about that as a candidate, all the people lose their minds. I would do away with Medicaid, period.
Right.
But from a political standpoint, what would I do with Medicaid? First of all, restrict it to only people who've paid in. Only people who are citizens. And look, and we should not be paying for hospital stays for illegal aliens. We shouldn't be paying for hospital stays for people who haven't paid in. And in the case of a kid, obviously, with Peach Care and all that stuff, you take care of kids. But the idea is the parents have paid in, and it's a very cold way of looking at it. But the fact is, we can't afford it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very cold when it comes down. I mean, there's going to be a point where the deficit hits or the national debt hits at a certain point, and it's going to be very cold for everybody. And that's the challenge. Like, nobody is willing to address it at this point, and it's going to come back to bite us in the
nobody wants to take away the people's bread and circus. As long as they have Hell's Kitchen or American Idol or whatever to watch on TV, and they live in air conditioning, and they can go to the doctor, maybe not the care that they want, but they can go to the doctor. What is your motivation if you were to stand up and be earnest when running for election, say, I'm going to take this away from you? They're not voting for you. They're voting for bread and circus, and that's why the Democratic Party is so damn strong. Is they threaten that they're going to take away your goodies.
Yep, I know.
So anyway, that's not even part of the show. I mean, it is now.
No,
but what happened in Pike County?
Yeah, so look, one of the reasons I ran for county commissioner is I thought our county manager was probably not the best person for the job. And this week he actually resigned. So you don't see that a lot in government, but the county manager in Pike County quit before we actually had to do something and probably make them quit in January. So it's never easy hiring a new county manager. You know that probably where you live. That's not an easy role to fill, but it's one of the most important role.
It's a very specific set of skills.
Yes, it is.
A very, very specific set of skills. I like to joke.
Well, it's a leadership role. I mean, you've got to be a good leader. You've got to work with the commissioners, and then you've got department heads that you have to manage. And distribute out the money to the different departments, like the road crew, and other groups, libraries, stuff like that. But
and they're all crying for more money. Parks, roads, libraries, they're all screaming for their share of the pot. And yeah, so it's not an easy job, but depending on the salary, I'll apply. Ken, put my name in.
Yeah, I'll put your name in. Just send me your resume.
Dude, my resume over the last 10 years is business owner. and 10 years before that was essentially a business owner. I was in a partnership working with my brother, and before that was banking. Before that was Army. I mean, there's my resume.
There you go. But anyway, yeah, so that's really interesting. I start in January, and things are already happening before I even get going. So yeah.
So they're afraid of you.
No, I wouldn't call it that. It's just I think people see the writing on the wall for a few things going on locally.
All right, what the hell was Trump thinking in his rally in Georgia? Now, this is not last Saturday as the show drops, the Saturday before. Obviously, October or not October. I wish it was October. Get this damn election over with. But this was like August 3rd or whatever. I think it was August 3rd because we're recording on the 10th on Saturday. So yeah, it was 7 days ago. What the hell was he thinking going up to Kemp?
Yeah, look, we're probably gonna make some of the MAGA people mad, but yeah. So Trump had his rally last Saturday in Georgia. This was the same time also Kamala Harris had her rally, and even before Trump got on stage, he attacked Governor Kemp on Truth Social before his rally and said Kemp should be fighting crime, not fighting unity in the Republican Party. He also criticized Marty Kemp for saying she would write in her husband's name for president this fall instead of voting for the Republican nominee. Let's just take that statement before we go into the rest of this stuff. When have you seen Governor Kemp not fighting for unity in the Republican Party? Like, I don't know about you, but I've never seen Governor Kemp not fight for unity in the Republican Party.
First of all, leave Marty out of it.
Yeah, leave the wife out of it. And look, she did open herself up by saying she wouldn't vote for President Trump, but I still think leave the wife out of it. Yeah, there's no reason to go after her.
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. There's no good reason to go after Marty. It just leave her out of it, number one. Number two, why in the hell would you go after somebody who just won 60% of a statewide election?
Yeah,
everybody's calling Georgia a battleground state. Why wouldn't you bring Kemp into the fold? Ask him to speak. Ask him to show up. At least shake his hand. Get a photo up of shaking hands with Kemp. Now it would look funny because Kemp's like 5'6" or something.
No, he's taller than that.
I know.
Kemp's 5'10" or 5. He's my height. I'm 5'11". He's 5'10".
No, he's shorter than you are, I think. I mean,
not much though. But the point.
Yeah, but at 6'1", everybody looks short to me.
Look, the point being, you're coming into a state that Governor Kemp just won and just destroyed Stacey Abrams. And by the way, 2 years before that, both of Trump's endorsement guys lost, right? I mean, we had who was the football player from Georgia, Herschel Walker.
Yeah, Herschel
got destroyed. He lost. And then we had the other Kelly Loeffler lost, which I wouldn't call her a Trump appoint. MAGA.
She was a Kemp appointee.
But we had I mean, how do we have Trump come into our state, needing to win this state? And the first thing he does is not attack the other people that he's actually running against, but he goes into this 10-minute tirade blaming Governor Kemp for his loss to Joe Biden. Hey, look, I'll give you news on this. I was in office when this happened. Even if we would have overturned the election, Governor Kemp would have called a special session. You know what that would have done? Absolutely nothing.
Besides cause a constitutional crisis.
Trump would have still lost because Georgia was not the deciding state in this.
No, it was one of the states, and the reason he's so mad is he thought he had Georgia in his back pocket. This is the same problem that Cammie has with black voters. Is she thinks she's got him in her back pocket? That's why she didn't feel the need to show up to the black journalist thing.
I know.
Trump, here's the thing, and we talked about this beforehand. Trump does some really, really, really good stuff. Having a roundtable with black business owners to discuss inflation, really, really smart.
Very good.
Great thing to do. Then he thinks he's a damn stand-up comedian, gets on stage and bashes a guy that won 60% of the friggin' vote.
And this is what he says. So let's be clear. I think everybody has seen this. If you're listening to the show, you're probably a political person anyway. You're not just some random person coming across. But he said, quote, he's a bad guy. He's a disloyal guy. And he's a very average governor, Trump said. Little Brian Kemp, bad guy. Okay, and let's talk about this again. Trump lost by 11,000 and something votes in Georgia. Whether or not you believe it or not, I could care less at this point. That was 4 years ago now. But do you think that statement about the most popular Republican governor in Georgia is going to win the soccer moms and the upper middle class people in the north side of town?
Because look, we've only had a Republican governor for 20-something years.
Yeah, and look, look, I get it. There's if you're the MAGA people and you think Brian Kemp cost Trump the election in 2020, hey, you're mad at Kemp, right? I see it every single day that there's some MAGA people that think Brian Kemp cost Trump the election. He didn't. But even if he did, let's just move past this a little bit. Do you still think Trump coming into Georgia and bashing Governor Kemp is the right thing to do? I mean, that's Candace Taylor crap. Look, we've got people that are more worried about Candace Taylor and following her goofy little ass down in South Georgia than getting behind one of the best Republican conservative governors in Georgia.
I won't say best. Look, Kemp has some failures, and it's someone that I know.
But okay,
but
he's in a purple state.
As far as politics go, Kemp owns Georgia.
Yeah, and he's also in a purple state, right? You can't be the most conservative governor out there in a purple state, but I think Kemp, along with the legislature, has tried to kind of walk that fine line of, how do we govern in a purple state and also pass a conservative agenda? Now,
well, look, he got permitless carry signed. Now, he did keep that in his back pocket until election year. But look, I know that damn well.
100%.
I've spoken to people under the Golden Dome.
I introduced that with Gertler back in 2019-20.
Well, nothing with Gertler's name was going to get through with the previous speaker. That's just
some things that
is.
Kemp's done in South Georgia. I don't think the stuff down around Jessica and the county and the oil, or the water wells and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that's good to be forcing a lot of stuff. But overall, if you look at his work over the last 6 years, I think anybody in Georgia, if you're a Republican, would say Kemp's been a pretty good governor for the state of Georgia in a 52-48 state.
And look, and he won 60% of the vote in a 52-48 state,
which means he got a lot of
annihilated.
Which means he got a lot of Democrats. Which means a lot of Democrats voted for Kemp
or stayed home
But I think a lot of them voted for him
because Stacey Abrams was such a horrible candidate, much like Herschel Walker was a horrible candidate. And look, the same thing. You and I chastised Cammie for having Stacey Abrams at her rally. There is no good reason to have her there. I mean, if she wants to sit somewhere, fine, go sit somewhere. But to get the photo op with Stacey Abrams is a horrible idea. So he could have capitalized on that. My opponent shared this same stage a week ago and had the loser Stacey Abrams endorsing her. Well, if she gets, she can look forward to 40% of the vote this time too. Or something witty, something funny, but he thinks he's there on improv night at a comedy place, at the Comedy Store in L.A. And that's what he thinks he's doing.
Yeah. Look, he went on and said our economy sucks in Georgia. I don't know about you, but I don't think our economy is bad in Georgia.
It ain't great, but it's no worse than the rest of the country.
He said crime is out of control. And at the same time, he's got Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones beside him. So I don't know about you, but Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones has got as much to do with the economy in Georgia as Governor Kemp because he's the leader of the Senate. So everything that passes the Senate and the House has to come through Burt Jones. So while Trump's up there bashing Governor Kemp, the lieutenant governor standing right beside him, and he's basically bashing the lieutenant governor. He's standing up there smiling from ear to ear. I mean, I don't get it. I really don't. If you're trying to win Georgia.
He's not playing to win. Look, and if you're listening, I'm really available to consult with you, especially after September, once my season dies down. But you write me a big enough check. And
I don't think anybody's consulting. There's no way anybody's consulting because
they're all worried about getting fired.
No consultant.
Trump, I'll stand behind you at the rallies. When you say something stupid, I'll smack you in the back of your head.
Yep. And then he claimed, he continues to make this claim that his endorsement of Brian Kemp won him the governor against Casey Cagle, the Republican primary. That couldn't be more far from the truth. If you remember what happened back in 2018-ish, Brian Kemp was running against Casey Cagle in the primary, or the runoff, and Clay Tippins back then, who was also running for governor, it just got beat. He had this secret recording. So he goes in Casey Cagle's office, and Casey said...
It's not about effing politics. Or it's not about effing people. It's about politics.
Yes, and he said he would keep bills or hold bills up, blah, 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 for different state senators so they could get more campaign contributions. So and so that recording came out. And as soon as that recording came out, Casey Cagle was done. Then President Trump comes in and endorses Brian Kemp. That had nothing to do with Governor Kemp winning. He was already going to win because all the news came out against Casey Cagle.
Yeah. Oh, Casey who can't tie his own shoes.
Yeah. So none of that. I mean, and Trump tries to claim he made Kemp governor of Georgia, and it just didn't. That was not why he won.
Cagle lost all but one county, and he lost his home county. He got annihilated. And then in re-election, Kemp annihilated Abrams again and worse. So this is a guy, if you're trying to win Georgia, if Georgia is in play, and I believe it is, we have 2 Democratic senators. And that's the other thing. Both senators ran statewide races, and one is Democrats. And we have this Republican governor who didn't squeak by, 50.1 versus 49.9. He annihilated that woman.
Yep.
I mean, look, he beat her so bad that he's a suspect for domestic violence.
And just think about, let's take this a little bit further. There's a lot of the state house has a very small majority of Republicans in the state house. There's a set of Republican state representatives on the north side of town that are in 5149 districts, and they are fighting for their life next year, and the House could flip. What do you think those Democrat opponents are doing when Trump says the economy sucks in Georgia? They're taking that video and they're running it against their opponent and saying, by the way, our economy in Georgia sucks because of this Republican I'm running against. And by the way, your Republican leader said it. So this could cost Georgia.
Why can't you say it another way? Is our nation's economy sucks right now. Inflation's out of control, and Georgia is no exception.
But you don't. You don't blame the governor.
Way you say it.
Yeah, 100%. You're 100% right. And there's a lot of representatives that stood up and came out. Scott Hilton's one of them up in the north side of town. A lot of reps came out and said they supported Governor Kemp. I just don't get it. And this is where, again, Trump is a stand-up comedian, or he tries to be on the stage, and he says this stuff that just does not make sense.
And look, we could do an hour on it.
Yeah, look, we're going to vote for him. I mean, look, you're
right.
Kamala Harris is terrible, and I'm
going to hold my nose like I have twice before, and push Trump. Again, MAGA people are going to like it.
I'm not even holding my nose. Yeah, I agree with you, but
because I'm going to hold my wallet because my wallet was a lot fatter when Trump was in office. So I'm going to hold my wallet and my nose, and then maybe hit the button with my elbow or something on the damn machine.
Yeah, because Harris and this Tim Walz guy, who is our next story, are so terrible.
Okay, so Walz has one of the most awkward coming out parties, and this is the same thing that Trump did with Vance. Is you introduce the vice presidential candidate. So he comes out, he shakes Kamala's hand, he gives Cammie's husband this giant bear hug. Then he shakes hands with his wife and brings her in for a hug. This is the same way that for anybody who doesn't know, I've never met Ken. But if I were to meet you, the same thing. Shake hands, pull you in, give you a hug. But that's not the way you greet your wife. You greet your wife with, I understand she probably has a lot of makeup on and all that stuff, but at least a kiss on the cheek.
I know.
You know, something like that, you know, a big hug, so something that shows that there's actual love there. And what it looked like when they did that was a political alignment instead of a marriage.
Right.
Even Bill faked it and kissed Hillary. I mean, who the hell would want to kiss Hillary?
Yeah, I don't know anybody that would.
I mean, I know that Bill and Hillary have been in bed together once because there's evidence of it, and believe me, that child looks like both of them. The worst parts of both of them. Anyway, so speaking of Walz, man,
yeah, this guy's position. Please don't tell me this is a middle of the road pick. This guy's hard.
God, this dude's hard left.
He's a hardcore lefty. He's not even a liberal. He's a hardcore lefty.
His wife left the damn windows open so she could smell the burning tires when Minneapolis was burning down for the George Floyd riots.
And she said that. She said, I could smell the burning tires, and that was a very real thing. I kept the windows open as long as I could because I felt like that was such a touchstone of what was happening.
It's unbelievable because the mayor was asking for the National Guard, was asking for help. Police stations are being burned down, and Mrs. Walz has the windows open so she could smell it and revel in what's going on. These people are radicals, and I don't say that lightly. Look, I would never vote for Bobby Jr., but I can appreciate the fact that Bobby Jr. has what he believes is the right thing for America. I mean, he's still way left of where I am, but he's nowhere near Harris and Walz. No, even close to where they are. I mean, it's the reason she didn't go with, what's his name? Shapiro?
Shapiro. No, not
Shapiro. Which would have been very, very, very politically savvy to do that. Bring somebody who is middle of the road, who has a state with coal mining. It's anti-Semitic. She didn't pick him because he's Jewish. As a woman who's married to a Jewish guy, she didn't pick him because he's Jewish.
100%. The left would not let. The left would not let that occur.
How in the hell American Jews can vote for this woman after she has repeatedly shown her anti-Semitism is beyond me. She says, she says the right things, but her actions speak much louder when she goes and meets with Netanyahu and then comes out and says, I told him he needs to end this war. That's I don't know how Christians and Jews, for that matter, can look at this and say that Israel shouldn't defend its homeland or defend the Holy Land.
Yep.
And that's the basis for Christianity and Judaism is right there. It would be like Christians attacking Mecca.
Yeah, you're not arguing with me. I'm not arguing with you on this.
So Walz also gave free college tuition to illegals.
Look, and this story comes into play in Georgia too, but this has been passed in Georgia. So Democratic governor, who is the Democratic Minnesota governor in 2023, so it's not 10 years ago, this was last year, he signed legislation that gives free public college tuition to Minnesota residents, including undocumented immigrants whose families earn less than $80,000 per year. If you're an illegal and you're in Minnesota and your family makes less than $80,000 a year, you get free college tuition.
Shows less than $80,000 a year.
Shows less than $80,000. Yeah.
Now, you have to understand
totally right.
You have to understand something about illegals and the way they work. And look, a lot of people who are undocumented, who are illegals, work really, really, really hard. But they don't pay taxes. They get cash, and trust me, a part of that cash goes back to their home country. And it's not whether it's Mexico, Guatemala, Venezuela, or whatever, they send that money home to help their families. So that money doesn't even stay in our economy. But I digress. The fact is that an illegal who busts his butt could be making $150 a year, and in cash. But when they fill out their tax forms, the 1040, it shows that they made $5,000 last year, and their kids get to go to college for free. No, they don't get to go for free. The taxpayers of Minnesota get to pay for their illegals to go to college. We shouldn't say free because it's not free.
No, it is. People are paying for that.
Yeah, it's redistribution of wealth.
Yeah,
and
100%.
who pays
That's
the
what
most
it
taxes?
is.
It's the blue collar guy who didn't get a chance to go to college.
Yep.
Who busts his butt.
Same
who
thing
goes
with,
like I do into crawl
paying off
spaces.
student loans. Yeah, same thing with student loans.
Right. It steals money from those who produce. All right.
Speaking of crawl spaces, I always think about, like, I work in the corporate world, and it gets corporate world sucks sometimes. So I'm always thinking, like, how can I do something out of the corporate world? And I think plumber, HVAC, electricity, but then I think I am not crawling in crawl spaces.
You're too old.
So I'm too old to crawl in crawl spaces.
I was evaluating the idea of going down to Southeast Georgia to help the storm recovery on the HVAC side. And I was talking to a buddy of mine. He goes, I'll go down there with us. He's like, no, I'm stocked up on fat white guys who don't want to get in crawl spaces. I got plenty of those. That's me. So I need workers.
Yeah,
but on the next subject, staying on Walz. He put tampons in the boys' bathroom. Now, this is in public schools. Let me ask you something. I don't know if you were a bastard like I was, but if they put a tampon machine in the boys' bathroom, and when I was in high school, damn tampons would be everywhere. Everybody would bring quarters to school with them. They'd throw them at each other. They'd try to flush them and stop up the toilets. There'd be tampons hanging from the fire sprinklers. There'd be tampons everywhere because boys are immature and little bastards. I know you don't have that problem in your house because your kids are well behaved and all that stuff. But I was a little bastard, and that's exactly what we would have done.
I know. And look, it's and this is grades 4 to 12. I don't get it. I mean, it just shows how radical this guy is, right? He's giving free college tuition. He's putting tampons in boys' bathrooms. Probably more about this last story. I don't know if he dodged combat service or not. I keep hearing this, but I haven't drilled down into the story because all the other stuff is so bad. It's like
that stuff is damning. It's absolutely damning. All right, so on to his service. I saw a quote that was put out in a meme, and I was unable to source that quote and put it to Walz. All right, so he did 24 years. He was penned sergeant major, but he never completed the coursework for the Sergeant Major's Academy. So when he retired as a master sergeant in E8 in 79 because he didn't finish his classwork to justify it. And that happens all the time. I got penned as a non-commissioned officer, never did, which is called PLDC, Primary Leadership Development Course. Never went. I was penned before deploying, and that because they needed a sergeant to run it, but I never did never went to school before ETS, which is ending time in service. So that doesn't bother me. That's one way or the other. Retirement doesn't happen, bam, like that. You just don't walk in and go, I retire, and you know that from the corporate world. You just don't walk in and say, I retire.
No, you don't.
So what he did was he filed his retirement paperwork, and he ended up getting out right as the orders were being cut to go overseas, to go into a combat zone. I can't remember. I think it was Iraq. I don't know if it was Iraq or Afghanistan, but it was one of the hot spots. This is back in, was it 2005? Somewhere around there. So it's when the stuff was going hot and heavy, and he said he retired so he could run for Congress. Now, that's being said, a command sergeant major has notice before the troops do that there's deployment to Iraq coming up. And again, I don't know if it's Iraq or Afghanistan. We're just going to use Iraq because It's just easier to say. So he would have had advanced notice of this deployment coming up. He would have known before the rank and file troops did. As the senior non-commissioned officer in his brigade, I believe. I think he was a brigade CSM. He was artillery guy. He retired instead of deploying, and it really put a crunch. And you have to realize when you talk about National Guard, you can't just grab a E8 and promote an E9 from somewhere else. There's nowhere else to pull them from because it's it's the state guard. You can't just in the regular Army, if somebody in the 82nd Airborne retires, they can go pull somebody from the 101 or 25th ID or whatever. They could pull somebody else, and the states don't have that ability. So he left his troops high and dry, and there are at least a half dozen of them who are fairly salty about it. The losing rank upon retiring doesn't bother me. That's just he didn't finish his coursework, and right. I believe, and this is tough because I only did 1 year in the Guard. It was called a Tri-1. It was designed for veterans, so I don't know everything about the Guard. But from regular Army, that kind of stuff happens. Yep. There's not a whole lot of pay difference, especially part-time pay between E9 and E8.
I don't know. Look,
that doesn't bother me, but the fact is, he left his troops high and dry. And if it were me, and I were in that position at 24 years, I would have deployed with my troops. I would have pulled my paperwork, say we'll get back to this when we get back to the States, and support my troops. And here's the thing: he's a command sergeant major. He is not on the front lines. He's back in a FOB, a forward operating base, in an air conditioned tent, or hooch, whatever they have set up for him, on a laptop, issuing orders and reviewing intel reports, stuff like that. It's not like he was going to be issued a rifle and going door to door fighting insurgents. That's just not the role of most sergeants major, with the exception of infantry. Obviously Sergeant Major Plumley was at LZ X-ray with Hal Moore, and that's if anybody who doesn't know, that's Plumley was portrayed by Sam Elliott in We Were Soldiers. He doesn't strike me as a sergeant major. Sergeant majors are a-holes. And I've known quite a few. In fact, Sam Elliott's portrayal of Sergeant Major Plumley was fantastic. It was, "Good morning, Sergeant Major. How do you know what kind of GD day it is?" That kind of stuff. That's how sergeant majors are. But he doesn't strike me as that. He's too affable. But I really would stop short of saying stolen valor when he talked about carrying a weapon in war and stuff like that. I don't like his policy, but I have a hard time calling it stolen valor when he says he retired a sergeant major. Well, he did, but he's not a retired sergeant major. He wore the rank when he retired, and it was reduced in retirement to E8.
All right,
master sergeant. So I have a hard time calling it stolen valor because I won't call anybody's service into question.
Yep.
He provided a service when he deployed to Italy and I think to Norway or something. I can't remember, but in support of other operations, which is fine. It's he got his overseas ribbon and all that stuff. That's fine. Did he misspeak, or was he misleading people when he talked about AR-15s and that's the type of weapon I carried into war? I don't think it was a misspeak. He knew damn well he's never been shot at.
Yeah, right.
I won't call it stolen valor, but he's a D-bag for doing that. So I don't know. But again, trying to move on relatively quickly because we've spent too much time on Trump. Debbie dumped a foot of rain in Georgia. This is down where Jessica and Eric live, down in the coastal Georgia.
Yeah, it dumped a ton of. It just got down there and it's just set. It didn't move for a while. Now it's going up the coast. But there was one person that lost their life in a storm, so that was very tragic. But yeah, it looks like there's another one coming behind it. We are getting into the point I didn't realize this, but like September, beginning of October, end of August, this is where it becomes real active down in the Caribbean, and all the storms coming off the coast of Africa. So
yeah, Katrina hit in August.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens over the next month or so.
Again, I love my DD-214, which is my release from the Army. But yeah, there's another one right behind it, and right now, the models show it hitting anywhere from Jacksonville up to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Now that could change 15 times before the next 10 days,
right.
was what they're saying. It could spin off into the Gulf and hit Mexico. It could spin off in the Gulf, hit Texas, Louisiana, something like that. We don't know, but for folks recovering in coastal Georgia to be looking at another storm and see the red right where they live again, they're just like, oh, good Lord. All right, think before you speak in the UK. This is very interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? So the UK, and a lot of this is coming out. So they've had, I don't know if you've seen the news lately, but they've had a lot of rioting over in the UK. And it's mainly from, let's just call it what it is. It's illegals and Muslims from Africa. They have taken over certain neighborhoods in the UK. Last week, there were 3 children who were murdered in a knife attack in Southport, England, and 10 others were injured. So that same day, a 55-year-old woman from Chester posted a claim on social media that the suspect wasn't illegal, basically. And she got arrested for saying that online. And what the UK has done is they're cracking down on what they consider misinformation. And they're actually jailing people for putting misinformation online. It is.
And look, he was not illegal. He was the child of Rwandan
none of that matters,
immigrants.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't matter. The fact is, there's a reason we have a First Amendment, and that's because
misinformation is okay. Yeah, you can post misinformation.
Yeah,
and it's not the government's job to determine what's misinformation and what's not misinformation.
Right. Well, we fought an entire war over this.
Yes.
And that's the reason that the First Amendment was first. The second was to protect the first.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're getting to the point where in the UK, look, it's getting out the same way in Canada. These countries are starting to crack down on what speech that they don't like. And they're starting to jail people for speech they don't like. It's the same way in Scotland now, where you can't misgender people in Scotland. And J.K. Rowling, continues to do this, and she's subject to be locked up in Scotland. So, look, I'm glad that people like her are pushing back. You got to be able to say anything you want online. This is a scary moment.
In Scotland, it is tough with gendering because both men and women wear skirts. I say that we've got very close friends who are Scottish and live near Glasgow. So trust me, I'd say that to Archie in a heartbeat, because that's just the way we treat our friends. And look, even Elon Musk chimed in. He spent billions buying Twitter just so that there'd be a platform. And look, if you go on X and bash Elon, he doesn't take it down. He lets he may respond to you and make you look like an idiot. But he doesn't take it down. He's not Zuckerberg.
No, but that's scary, and things come from England. And look, if Kamala somehow wins next year or in November, this stuff's coming to the U.S. I wouldn't put it past Democrats at all if they control both the House and the Senate to pass laws like this and to go after people for what they consider misinformation. Especially
if Biden gets his way with a rotating court every 18 years. Now, we have Planned Parenthood and testosterone. They are administering testosterone to little girls who are depressed for whatever reason.
Yep.
And putting them on testosterone, which is...
And they've become the leading distributor of tests in the United States at this point.
You know this from being 18 years old, as well as I do. Testosterone is a hell of a drug.
Oh, yeah, right.
It makes you do stupid stuff. If you wonder why old men don't get in fights, it's because our testosterone level drops.
It goes down as we get older in life.
Yeah, and you know what? It's probably a good thing that we don't have many 18-year-olds making laws, and we have a lot more 40, 50, 60-year-olds making laws, because if 18-year-old be like, screw them, kill them,
And the craziest thing about this story is was written about a young lady that came in when she was 18 years old, but she just was depressed, questioned if she was a girl or boy, and immediately within a 30-minute appointment, they were pumping this young girl full of tests within 30 minutes. No clinical exams, no nothing.
Yeah, and she felt great, because that first surge, there's a couple things that happened with this. One, she was online, and this was during COVID, so she was isolated from all her friends, and she goes online and she sees all these girls that say that they were so depressed, and they got on testosterone, and they realized that they were actually a boy stuck in a girl's body, and all that. They never explained to her the side effects. I'm gonna try to say this family friendly. One of the effects of women taking testosterone is growth. The little man in the boat becomes a big man in the boat. Okay.
Yeah,
let's put it that way. But
body
it also,
hair,
it also
you get all kind of side effects. Yeah, there's all.
Yeah,
kind of
you
side
also
effects to taking tests.
run the risk of infertility.
Yep.
Which this girl has. And look, she's a lesbian. And any other time in history, she would just be gay. She wouldn't have this pressure. In social media, it does a lot of this. It put the pressure on her to say, I'm a boy, so I'm going to start taking testosterone. Her voice will never go back.
No, it's sad. I mean,
it really is.
And these are tax dollars again. People say tax dollars don't go to Planned Parenthood. Yes, they go to Planned Parenthood. They're aborting babies, and they're pumping young women full of testosterone. It's
right.
It's shameful.
They say
really
there's no government funded abortion. So what happens is Planned Parenthood gets funding from the federal government for things like testosterone, for other things, but it's not going to abortion. But it does. What it does is it allows Planned Parenthood to take the dollars they would put towards other treatments for women and redirect it to abortions. So this idea that the federal government doesn't fund abortions is horse manure. That's just not true.
I know.
It's sort of like if Ken, I gave you $1,000. And I said, you have to put 200 in your right pocket and 800 in your left pocket. And then you say, well, I only have 200 because that's what's in my right pocket. No, that's not how it works. You have 1,000 because both pockets are available to you. So it's just stupid. And look, I feel for this young lady. I really do. She had mental problems, and a lot of young people do. A lot of older people do too. She needed to go to talk to a therapist and find the root of what was wrong in her brain and work with that. So, all right. Speaking of people who are mentally deranged, we have one more squad member is out the door. Corey Bush is back on the street.
Yeah, when did she go in? I can't remember. It was either 18 or 20. But yeah, Corey Bush was a representative out in St. Louis. He was a member of the squad along with Ilhan Omar and the bartender out of New York. AOC. So she just got last Tuesday. She got defeated in a primary, Democratic primary. So she didn't get defeated by a Republican. She got defeated by a member of her own party out in St. Louis. And it sounds like the gist of this is Corey Bush was very anti-Semitic. They came in with a lot of money. This is another one of those primaries that millions of dollars were spent. But the person running against her was, really dove in on her anti-Semitism. So, yeah, but she's gone. She's
and the
done.
person, and look, the person running against her is not a conservative.
No, not at all.
Ran against her is not a conservative.
Very much a hardcore liberal.
This person will absolutely caucus with Hakeem Jeffries and all that. So this is not a revocation of democratic policies. It is absolutely a referendum on her personally, and she is ugly human being, and I don't mean that physically.
No, she's a terrible person.
She's absolutely a horrible person. And in her quote unquote concession speech, she says, "Oh, you've radicalized me." Whoa. What did you think you were before, honey? Honestly, did you not think you were radical before?
She was very radical before. Yeah, very radical.
And we have, as the show drops, we have another primary coming up tomorrow on Tuesday for Ilhan Omar.
Yeah, who's up out of Minnesota, right? She's in one of those very liberal, very Muslim communities up in Minnesota. And it sounds like, I don't know who she's running against, but it sounds like another Muslim is running against her. So it's
at least a Muslim name. It's Al-Kiri or something like that.
Yeah, I'll apologize if the person's not a Muslim.
But she has a very Muslim name, so it's either her or maybe her husband who's a Muslim. She's not anti-Muslim. That's the thing, is she has a Muslim name. So if you don't like Ilhan Omar, and most people don't because she's nuts, you have another Democrat who is very liberal, also has a Muslim name as an option, and I put her odds at 50-50 right now.
I would love to see her go down next week in the election.
Speaking of going down,
gosh, I didn't know where that was
going. State Representative Devin Seabaugh hit a bicyclist in Grant Park last week. I think it was Thursday. It was Thursday evening at like 9 o'clock.
Yeah, this happened last Thursday night. So this is a Republican state representative. He struck a bicyclist in Grant Park. This is also where a lot of state reps have apartments and condos over in the Grant Park area. I don't know if he was over there for a fundraiser or what happened. But,
well, there was a conference because a buddy of mine was with him. He was sober, not drinking during the day of whatever conference it was. I'd have to
it was
ask.
Probably Eric Erickson's conference.
It could have been, but yeah,
I think it was.
He was sober, but at 9 o'clock, apparently, he'd had a couple drinks, and
so he hit a biker that was in the bicycle lane.
And he did not call the police chief at home. He pulled over, admitted to it.
I don't think anything's wrong with the arrest. He was transported to Atlantic City Jail. I guess my question is on stuff like this, and this reeks of Trey Kelly years ago, but he was accused of driving under influence and failure to obey traffic control devices. I think his Facebook post said he was looking forward to all the facts coming out in the case. I don't know what other facts could come out. You hit a bicyclist in the bicycle lane, and you got charged with DUI.
The blood test may come out and say that he was well under the limit. There's a lot of stuff that could come out.
I hope he didn't I hope he didn't blow. I mean, I can't imagine he blew at the scene. I mean,
I sure as hell wouldn't.
If you're a state representative, and you don't know what to do, we get pulled over for DUI. You probably shouldn't be a state representative.
Yeah, but you don't take sobriety tests in the side of the road. You don't blow in the side of the road.
Yeah, you did nothing.
The sobriety tests are designed for you to fail.
I guess my question
I've seen
on this
a lot of them, and I couldn't pass them sober.
Look, this guy, and I don't know him. He came in after I left, and Rep. Seabaugh may be the nicest person in Georgia, but I think if you're in charge of passing laws up under the Gold Dome, and you go out and get a DUI and hit a biker in a bike lane, I think you need to step back and resign. I don't think you got to get a pass for doing that.
You park your vehicle and you call Uber.
Yeah,
or if he does have a place down there, you stay down there. You call your wife and say, "Look, I'm just saying
after.
I've had a few."
Yeah, I tell it. But the after part of this, okay, you've done it. You've got a DUI. You've hit a biker. I think it's time to step back at that point.
Well, he can't. He's in the middle of a re-election campaign. He can't. You can, but that would hand Wes Cobb over to the Democrats.
Well,
because you can't nominate anybody at this point.
There's more important things in primaries and elections.
Oh, no, I agree. I'm just saying that.
I mean, are we just excusing all behavior just because you're an elected official? I mean,
no, I'm just saying that he's getting pressure from other reps, probably from the speaker, maybe even from the governor. Do not step down. He won't even go to trial before the election. I mean, if he hires a decent attorney,
he won't go to trial at all if he hires a decent attorney, and Look, this is the
Yeah,
whole thing.
it'll come down to reckless driving or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, this is the whole thing. If you've got money or you don't have money, and I hate to phrase it like that, but if you got money, you get a DUI, you're going to hire a good lawyer, and it's going to be taken down to reckless driving or something, right? You're not going to be prosecuted for a DUI, and I'm sure that's what's going to happen in this case. I'm just saying, if you're in charge of passing laws in the state of Georgia and you're breaking the own laws you passed, you should probably take a break from serving.
Yeah, I talked to my little brother today as we record, and that is his state rep. He goes, yeah, I heard about it. But this is a good time to remind you that these are our opinions, not those of anyone not on the show or any respective company for which we may work, own, or otherwise associate ourselves with on a regular or irregular basis. Also, you can find other episodes and relevant stories over the GeorgiaVirtue.com. Kenny, the mule is yours. I'm sorry, Kenneth, the mule is yours.
Look, I think this is an easy one, and it continues. It's Delta Airlines. I think they've probably been a mule before, but their top DEI officer has now said that, and probably everybody that's flown has remembered, they say, ladies and gentlemen, or, during the announcements, they say that. But this new DEI officer at Delta has said, we will no longer say ladies and gentlemen at the gate or on the airplane because they want to be more inclusive.
Yeah, Eric said in our private chat, because I wouldn't care if they addressed us as a-holes. Just let me on the plane.
Yeah, and get me from point A to point B. Look, I don't care what they say, but I think it's pretty bad when this DEI officer is like, we're not saying this because we're going to be more inclusive. Has anybody ever got on a plane and said, God, I can't believe Delta just said, ladies and gentlemen?
Well, how about ladies and gentlemen and non-binary? No.
Ladies, gentlemen, and confused people. How about that?
And what I said to you before we started recording is still true. Is I don't want to get on a flight, see a black captain, and then wonder if he's a DEI hire. We've talked about the same thing with doctors going through and lawyers going through UCLA. Is I don't want that even to come into my mind, and it's not that I have a problem with a black person flying an airplane. I don't care. Get me from A to B safely. I don't care. I don't care if they're black, white, somewhere in between. I don't care. I don't care what religion they are. Just get me where I'm going safely. And you and I fly a good bit. You more than I do. I don't care. All I care about is that this pilot has the amount of hours, he's rated on the equipment that I'm flying on. That's all I care about. But the problem when you put out statements like this is it starts to creep into your mind that, is this a DEI hire? And that's a problem. Yep, it's bad if it's flight attendants and gate agents. It's damn near deadly if it's pilots. All right, so speaking of planes, we have the plane that went down in Brazil last week. That was a doozy.
Yeah, that was, it killed 61 people aboard. I mean, they had video of this. I guess everybody's got a phone out nowadays, but it was a passenger plane. It crashed into a gated residential community in Sao Paulo last Friday. Did you see this? I mean, I guess it was a dual prop plane.
Yeah, it was an ATR-72, which is a twin turboprop.
Yeah, that's right.
It apparently
just spiraled down, right? I mean,
it apparently stalled, which is tough to do when you have propulsion, and went into a flat spin. And when I say flat spin, for people who don't know, is the plane stayed level and and not circling down like you would think. It was spinning like a top. Or like a dreidel for that matter, spinning like a top. It wasn't going forward at all. So it wasn't circling down. It was in a flat spin, straight down, killed everyone on board, including crew, passengers. Luckily, nobody on the ground was hurt, but it set fire to a residential neighborhood in Sao Paulo.
Yeah.
Is it Sao Paulo or Sao Paulo? Not San. Sao Paulo.
Yeah, Sao Paulo. Yep.
I'm too used to speaking Spanish. But Sao Paulo set this neighborhood on fire. It was a gated community. And yeah, there's cell phone video of the dadgum thing going down. Now, they have recovered the the black box. We're not going to hear anything about it for at least a few days while they analyze the data on the black box, because it's not just voice recordings. The black box also records the instruments, what they were saying, and all that.
Right.
But going into a flat spin out of a stall really sounds to me like pilot error.
Do the people on board just pass out at that point? I know when I was flying to Miami this week or last week, the plane dropped. I mean, it was one of those moments where literally it dropped pretty quick, just for a second, right? And it scared everybody. And you're thinking, oh my God, you're having a... But in this case, this was, I think you said 10 or 15 seconds.
It was like 80. It was like 80 seconds.
80
as
seconds.
I recall.
I mean, if you know you're about to die, and you've got 80 seconds of this plane spinning out of control. I mean, I can't imagine.
You remember the Gravitron at fairs, right?
Yes, I do. I hated that ride.
So you're essentially in a Gravitron where you're in a centrifuge, and you're being pulled towards the window. And dropping, so you're being pulled to the window, and that weightless feeling where your stomach is in your throat as you're dropping out of the sky, and a minute 20 is a long time. I think Gordon Lightfoot in the talking about the Ella Fitzgerald said when the minutes turn into hours.
Yep.
Yes, they were. Unless they blacked out, which is possible with that, unless you blacked out, you're aware the entire time that you're going to die, and that's horrible.
I can't imagine. I really can't. And I mean, you saw it as soon as it hit the ground, it burst up into flames. I mean, it was a terrible.
It was 52 people. Or 62 people.
No, it was 57 passengers and 4 crew members. Yep.
No, they've come out and corrected that. It was 62. There was one passenger that they had not accounted for. I don't know how the hell that's possible, but then again, I'm thinking of American stuff. But yeah, I don't know if this person was a non-rev that maybe was flying jump seat or whatever. But yeah, it was 58 and 4.
Yeah, that's terrible though. I feel so bad for those people. You don't hear about plane crashes a lot. I mean, you hear a lot. Look, there were 2 or 3 car wrecks in my area this week that took the life of people. But it feels like whenever we hear a plane crash that kills people, it's a lot more. It just does. It just sends a different kind of feel through.
It does,
right?
because the majority of Americans do travel by air now. 50 years ago, that wasn't the case. It was the privilege of people with money, and now you can fly from here to Vegas for $59 on Spirit or whatever. Man, it makes news because it's so rare. We don't cover every car crash because you simply can't. There needs to be something extraordinary about it, whether like last week it was a chase from the GSP or something like that. But generally speaking, it doesn't make the national news if somebody dies in a car accident.
Yep.
Which is far more likely than dying in a plane crash. But as any student pilot will tell you, if you stall, you sacrifice altitude to maintain speed. And look, that's what Captain Sully did. Is he took bird strikes into both engines and says, I'm not going to make it, but he sacrificed altitude to maintain speed and put it down in the only friendly place in New York, which was the Hudson. All right, Kenneth, as we're running long, do you have any closing thoughts?
Look, I know we talked about Trump too long today, but I really hope he can get this campaign turned around this week. I can't imagine what 4 more years of Kamala and this new Tim Walz would be like. So whoever his advisors are, I just hope they can get this campaign turned around, because I don't think they know what to do yet with Kamala. And she's changed where Biden was running against Trump, and it was like Trump is a threat to democracy. She's completely changed around the tone of the campaign. Her and Walz are the happy-go-lucky. Everything's going to be great. We're all in it together. They've moved towards more of the Obama campaign now, the Obama campaign strategy. You remember him back when he won the first time. It was energizing. Yeah, it was energizing, and I think people I think she's trying to tap into what he had back in '08, and Trump somehow has to turn this thing around. He cannot. You're not going to win this election being perceived as the angry old guy that that thinks the election was rigged and all that stuff. You can win your base, but you're not going to win. You're not going to win enough to.
Well, that's his problem. Is he keeps playing to the damn base.
Yeah, and you can't. You've got to get out of that. You really do. So that's my closing thought.
The only thing I have is, if you like what you heard, like and share us on the socials. If you don't like what you heard, like and share us on the socials. Big thanks to Eric Cumbie, our editor, to my part of this endeavor, Commissioner-elect Ken Pullen. I'm Dave Roberts. We'll talk to you next week.
Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. They sing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon.